Everyone, welcome to this Patreon exclusive video with me, Jim, Punk Raider, and Finn.
Who's that? Some weird bloke over in the other box.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, am I in the right chat? Hang on a minute. What?
This ain't Twitch. What's going on?
Click the wrong link. Sorry. Yeah.
Just wanted to pull you boys together to have a quick chat about something I've been looking at this week after our fourth week, quarter of the season down. I wanted to focus on two teams that we really thought were going to do better than they are right now, and those are the two teams that competed in the Super Bowl back in February. That is the Cincinnati Bengals and the LA Rams, two teams that were expected to get easy double-digit wins, breeze into the playoffs, and be competing again for the Super Bowl. Isn't working out that way. You know, they're 2-2, both of them. I want to look at the Bengals first and just hit some stats at you very quickly. So Joe Burrow is getting hit a lot, and he's throwing interceptions quite a lot as well.
That's what Joe Burrow does. He gets hit a lot.
He shouldn't have been getting hit this season.
2 years. Well, no, he's not supposed to be, but you know.
Yeah, 7 sacks in the first game. Obviously, against the Steelers, they lost that one, and 4 interceptions. Obviously. They lost that one.
You can wipe the smile off your face now.
Well, I've got to find my smile somewhere, Finn. Then they go to the Cowboys, and they get hit 6 more times through that pass rush. The pass rush doesn't have Randy Gregory anymore, you know. Only 1 touchdown, gets a fumble recovery in that game. And then the 3rd and 4th weeks, they beat the Jets when Joe Flacco's throwing for them. Again, Burrow's sacked twice. And then last week, they get lucky with Tua going out. There was a tie game at that point, I believe. Still, I don't think they're helping themselves with the rushing game as well. So one thing I noticed when I was going through these stats is that they had 133 yards rushing as a team against the Steelers, but every week it's got worse. So week 2, it was 89 rushing yards. Week 3, it was 69. And then week 4, it was 67. So they're moving more and more away from the running game, where Joe Mixon's pretty decent running back. But they're not really getting the yards out of Joe Burrow, and they're not hitting Jamar Chase as much as they were last year. So, for example, against the Jets, Jamar had just 29 receiving yards. He got a touchdown, but 6 receptions and only 29 yards. They need those skill players to be playing better because the O-line is not keeping up.
I think that's the major problem is the O-line. You know, it's very hard to run the ball if your O-line can't block for the run, and it's very hard to pass the ball downfield if your O-line can't block for the pass. The amount of money that the Bengals spent on this line is absolutely ridiculous in the offseason. So much so that I hadn't realized that they'd actually retooled the entire line. It's one of those kind of weird and wonderful things that, hey, guess what? Just because you bring in a whole bunch of expensive free agents doesn't mean it works. You need to coach them as well. And, you know, I think it's probably a case of a little bit of learning the new system for all the O-line guys, probably a little bit of they need to be coached a bit better. Probably a little bit of the offensive coordinator needs to call some better plays as well. You know, if you know your O-line isn't working, then you need quick outs. You need quick slants. There's no point trying to get 4 seconds to let Jamar Chase get 40 yards downfield and then launch him the ball. You need to be getting it in his hands quicker. So I don't think there's one overriding piece that you can say if we fix this it'll suddenly come good, but I think there's certainly a myriad of problems there that just by little tweaks and changes you can probably actually get an improvement week on week and probably quicker than you expect. It is a bit weird though. It's definitely weird. I'll give you that one.
I think you've nailed it with it's the O-line where the main issues are. I mean, the rushing game is falling off a cliff eventually, going off the stats you mentioned. Eventually, they're going to be running for next to nothing each game, which obviously some teams you can work with, just a very strong sort of passing game. But the problem is they don't have a passing game to back it up. So it's not even like they can rely on Burrows to get him down the field because he's getting sacked left, right and centre. So there's a lack of options going forward, and can't win games if you're not putting points on the board.
Not normally, even if you're a bad team, you're good at one or the other. You're right. You can normally either protect enough to pass the ball, you can protect enough to run the ball, and then you can use that to set up play action or vice versa. You can use the passing game to set up the running game. If you can't do either to any level whatsoever, you're not going to set up the running game. You're not going to be able to set up the passing game. So, defenses are keying on whatever they're doing in the first sort of 10, 15 scripted plays and going, well, we know they're going to try and run the ball. So let's just focus on that because we know that we're going to get through the O-line. And that means that, it takes Chase out of the equation. It takes Higgins out of the equation. You don't have to worry about it.
But they got away with it last year.
They got away with it. And but then we said this all through the playoffs last year is how long is it going to be? I mean, what did the Titans end up with? 9 sacks and 16 QB hits in that. Yeah. And they lost the game. They just had some charmed life last season. And honestly, we all knew what the problem was. Even they knew what the problem was. They went out and bought a whole new offensive line. But for whatever reason, it's still not right and it's still not working.
Yeah. So looking at the rest of their schedule, just a quick one. They've got some tough games. It's not the easiest of schedules. I think they might lose this weekend at the Ravens. They can probably beat the Saints and the Falcons in the AFC South. Browns, they'll probably have a game each against each other. I mean, the AFC North usually take a game off each other. So let's say they lose one of their games against the Browns. They got the Panthers. That should be an easy win for them. Got the Steelers. They might well win that game as well. Titans and Chiefs, Buccaneers, Bills. They got to play the Ravens twice actually. Yeah, I just totting through it very quickly. I reckon there's 6 wins and 7 losses
total, or from now.
From now, and they're already 2-2.
8 and
so
8 and 9.
8 and 9.
From a team that I had predicting like 13 wins. Now they might not get a winning record.
That's not entirely unheard of. And, the Super Bowl hangover thing that we keep talking about is definitely real. I mean, for example, your Steelers, Jim, you went from 12-4 one season to 8-8 the next season. That would be a similar drop off to what we're looking at for the Bengals now. There are, throughout history of the NFL, there are always teams that not necessarily that win the Super Bowl, but also lose the Super Bowl that just drop off the next year. And it could just be that, they had that one run where everything came together perfectly, like it's done for the Bengals last season. And actually what they are is a mediocre 8-8 team, or 8-9 team as it is now. But, there is this mystical aura about the Super Bowl hangover, and I love it. I think it's great because it, again, just, it means you can never rely on anything in the NFL until you play the game.
It always throws up so many unknowns, isn't it? The fact that you go into a game week going, they are going to wipe the floor with them, and it turns out it's a lot closer than everyone expected. And like I said, you get this hangover. But even last season, I definitely didn't expect. If you would have told me last season, even if you would have, I didn't asked me at the start of last season, I wouldn't have put the Bengals getting to the Super Bowl. So I think that was a bit of a, I wouldn't say fluky, because obviously they grinded out results, but maybe it was just sort of a somewhat of a lucky season. And now it's back to the Bengals that everyone knows and expects.
Completely agree with that, Finn. I mean, last season, if you'd asked me, I was asked at the start of the season, I had the Bengals down as a 4 or 6 win team. They were not very good at all. And, what Burrow and Chase and co managed to do was pretty much phenomenal. And I can't think of another team that everybody, pundits, people in the game, commentators, everybody was no one had the Bengals at the start of last season. The Bengals really were that kind of team of fortune, like you say. And I think we mentioned before the Titans game, and they had so many games where they should have lost, but they somehow won it. And they're just struggling to replicate that this season. But also the other thing is that if you make it to the Super Bowl or the championship game and win it, then you get a massive target on your back. Teams just try that little bit harder, just want to make a little bit more of a name for themselves, because they know that a team that was there or thereabouts last season is going to be in the spotlight, so people are going to notice it.
I think it brings us nicely on to the second team then, the team that actually won it last year, and that is the LA Rams. Again, slightly similar issue for the Rams. Their O-line isn't great. They have had some retirements, obviously, that happened on that O-line. Big stats for me, again, is last season, Matt Stafford had the most interceptions, tied with Trevor Lawrence. This year, he seems to be trying to do it again. He had 3 in his first game against the Bills, where they lost, and they looked bad in that first game. I mean, the Bills didn't look great either. It was a messy first game of the season. But the Bills did go all the way across the country into the Rams' home, where they were celebrating their Super Bowl win, and then he put up 10 points. 31-10, bad loss. And he got picked 3 times. He got sacked 7 times. In the second game against the Falcons, they get a win, but it's close. They came all the, so far ahead, and they let the Falcons come back into it. They're up 28-3 at one point, which I think would be like PTSD for Falcons, but they actually did almost come back into this game. 2 interceptions again for Stafford. And then the third game at the Cardinals, division game. Yeah, they win, but the Cardinals look bloody terrible. Again, there's no touchdowns for Stafford, no interceptions finally. But then Kyler didn't have any touchdowns either. So 20-12 win. And then last week at the Niners, 9 points. Again, Stafford's not putting up any points. He had an interception. He had 7 sacks in the game again. So he's getting hit a lot. And the only thing that's saving him, as we probably already know, is Cooper Kupp. First game, 128 yards and a touchdown. Second game, 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. Third game, a touchdown, a rushing touchdown on a bad game. And fourth game, 122 yards, no touchdowns, but 14 receptions. And was the only thing really moving them down the field. So,
I think for me, the Rams is more of a surprise than the Bengals. I think the Bengals, we know what they are. We knew what they were. The Rams, you look at them on paper and they shouldn't be that much different from how they were last year. So, all right, you've lost Von Miller, but you've brought in Bobby Wagner. There's certain like-for-like changes, certain personnel changes, but Allen Robinson's come in. They can't get him in the offense. The running game's non-existent, absolutely non-existent. Why? Is it because of the offensive line? Is it because actually, Cam Akers and co just aren't very good and have been found out ever since the kind of playoffs last year? It's the Rams to me is a really tricky one. Stafford's decision making, it seems to be Cooper Kupp or nothing.
It's very tunnel vision, isn't it?
Yeah, he's not going through progressions. He's not reading it. I don't know if it's the play calling. Is the play calling going, you must look at Kupp first, second, and third, and then maybe if there's no one else open, go somewhere else? The only other person I'd say that is coming out of this offense with any credit at all at the minute is Tyler Higbee, the tight end. He seems to be able to, do bits and pieces. But again, it's very limited in that, again, and, to a certain degree, you will always look at your number one receiver first if you're playing at quarterback. You'll try and get your ball to your best player, which is Cooper Kupp. Let's make no bones about it. But there has to be times when you've got plays in for other people as the number one receiver. Otherwise, defenses just start keying on Kupp and, triple team him, take him out, and there's no one else that's stepping up at all.
I think they're targeting other people. They're just not getting the production out of them that they get from Cooper Kupp. They got like Skowronek as the other receiver, because they should have really re-signed OBJ. And I think they're probably
is OBJ even fit? Has he recovered from his knee surgery yet?
I'm 50%.
I'm pretty certain that they might re-sign him. I think they will, but for McVay being this offensive guru, there's not much offensive guru-ness going on with the Rams at the minute. It's all very, basic dink and duck. I mean, you know, if you got Cooper Cup having to rush touchdowns as well, then you've got serious problems. Serious problems. And I picked the Rams for the Super Bowl again this year. So, you know, it's it's one of those to me where I'm kind of sitting there going, oh, I wish I picked the Eagles instead. But, you know, who knows? They can turn it around. They absolutely can. But they need to start doing it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, they're going to start dropping back and dropping out a number one contender consideration. And really, I'm not sure they're built to win that many away from home.
No, they are very strong home side. I know that particularly last few seasons, whenever we've had a home and away game against them, home we will. It's been a close game, but we will go and they will come to us and we will get the W. But whenever we go there, they'd always shut us out, and it just looks like we would forget how to play football. Whereas this season, it just doesn't seem as free flowing from them. Going back to the OBJ, I wouldn't be surprised if they re-signed him. I think he's an incredible threat going forward. And even if it just sign him just to increase and get out of that tunnel vision of, right, where's Cup? There's Cup. Oh, he's not free. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me wait a second. Oh, he's still not free. What am I going to do now? Gives him another option. It gives the opposition as well. It gives them someone else to think about. Whereas now they can just go, right, let's just take Cup out of the game and there's no other threat. Whereas if they've then got trying to focus on OBJ as well, it adds in a different dynamic, which then hopefully would, for the Rams, and would free up the game and let them get back to how they play football. But to me, this was, like you said, this is more of a shock than the Bengals drop off.
Yeah,
definitely. And you know, their defense isn't being particularly great either. You know, if you're paying Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, and Aaron Donald a shed load of money, you want more than what you're getting currently out of them. I mean, you know, in the main pod we highlighted who was it that scored the touchdown that ran straight through Ramsey's tackle? Debo. You can't do that. You can't let that happen. It's absolutely ridiculous the way they're playing at the minute. And I'm very disappointed in them. They should go and sit on the naughty step and think about what they've done.
So 2-2, just to wrap it up then, guys, looking at their schedule as well, I actually, when I went through it, they've actually given them 6 wins and 7 losses. So exactly the same as the Bengals. I think they might end up, because they might lose to Dallas this weekend. They got easy games: Carolina, Saints, Raiders, Broncos is an easy game. Cardinals. They can probably get the Cardinals
over the Raiders, didn't you?
But I think they're going to lose one of the games to Seattle. Probably the game in Seattle. Chargers. I think they might not be able to keep up with the Chargers. The Packers in Green Bay. I don't think they can do that. And they've got to play the Niners again, and they've got to play the Chiefs in Arrowhead. So you're making me crazy.
They definitely need to pick up a couple of wins against those teams that you wouldn't at the moment pick them against.
I think to beat Tampa Bay. That wasn't nasty.
If they end up with an 8 record, 8 wins, they're gonna miss the playoffs.
Quite possibly, although it's the NFC, so they got a chance.
Yeah,
true.
The West is really struggling.
Yeah. So that was just what I thought, guys. So have a quick look at those 2 teams. But I guess have a look at the schedule, see what you think. I might be completely wrong on my my predictions on what wins they're getting remaining.
That's why you say the predictions.
In the end, it usually works out okay. Yeah, which ones I picked are right and wrong. The actual number is not too bad off. But yeah, that was the Patreon video. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we're back next week. But cheers.